Legend of Korra, I feel, gets a lot of unwarranted pressure from fans of Last Airbender. It's like if Last Airbender is the popular, charismatic, successful older brother, Legend of Korra is the younger, less perfect, but not bad younger sister. And throughout her whole run, she's been in the shadow of her older brother, who everyone expected and wanted her to be just like. Now don't get me wrong, this show isn't without flaws. A lot of those flaws are thanks to Nick just tripping over the creators over and over while the show was going on. And yes, I definitely like Aang's show more than Korra's, but I also like that show more than most shows, so it's really not that strange. And that's how I see Korra. Yes, while it does take place in the Avatar world, it's not Avatar The Last Airbender. It's a new show with a different style. I never expected it to be The Last Airbender, and I didn't want it to be. I already had that adventure. You're not going to be able to replicate it without feeling like you're just doing it all over again. So yeah, overall, I like The Legend of Korra, and with the series jumpstart with it coming out on Netflix, I thought I'd talk about what came after Season 4. Like Last Airbender, Legend of Korra is followed by its very own comic series that continues the Avatar's journey after its last episode. I'm going to review these 3 issues like I would an episode of the show, going over the characters, the story, the art, and so on and so forth. So, with Metalbender Vader being defeated, and a new portal created, what else is there? Well, similar to the Avatar comics, we're dealing with the aftermath. The day was saved, but now it's time for the cleanup. The city, and most importantly, its people, have been wounded, and they need help. They need leadership and hope. So we have 3 or 4 story points in this 3-parter. The main one is the Triad story. The city's in a state of recovery, and the triple threats are taking advantage of it. More specifically, this new kid named Takuka. We'll talk more about him in a second. But the overall story, I really appreciate that this is a smaller story from Season 4. Like I stated earlier, the big bad of Season 4 is done. Kuvira is gone, but the world still moves forward, and there are still going to be people that want more power. And having it be the triple threats, they've been put to the side for most, well, all of Korra really. Season 1, Lightning Bolt Zolt lost his bending to Amon, and then they faded away. Season 2, they came back, but they were really just lackeys for Varric. And then that was it. If they did come back after that, they weren't doing anything worth remembering. So having them return as the main threats was a nice change. Now Takuga, seemingly coming out of nowhere as the main villain of this arc. Takuga definitely has the making of a great villain. He's mysterious, we don't really know where he comes from and how he's so skilled. He can chi block and is like a master with those hook swords. He's able to go toe to toe with benders. He's also smart. During the story, none of his decisions seemed rash or just ridiculous. His plans were actually making the triple threat seem like an actual threat. I mean, they actually had this villain kill a previously known, well, not that known, but still known character. And when he was mutated, he only felt more threatening. Just look at this panel of him choking out this rich guy. It's a little disturbing, but the good kind. Despite this though, when comparing him to Amon or Zahir or Kuvira, I couldn't figure out why he wasn't on the same level as them. And I was just thinking it over and over, and I think now I know why. While Amon, Zahir, and Kuvira seemed to be exactly where they needed to be, Takuga was starting from the bottom. He had no money, he just started out as the leader when the comic started, so not a lot of people really respected him, and he just seemed to be figuring things out as they went along. Intelligently so, don't get me wrong, but he didn't seem to have a solid plan until the very end. Until then, he was growing. This actually reminded me of a villain from My Hero Academia, Shigaraki. In that anime, he too's learning how to take what he wants, similar to Takuga. This character starts off immature, unfocused. He really just didn't seem to know what he was doing. He doesn't sound like a really good villain, right? Well, fans of the manga know that this does pay off in the future. Going back to Takuga, this is why I liked that they had him escape at the end of this arc. Characters like Amon, Ozai, Kuvira are good because they're like this force that the heroes have to overcome. At the start, it looks like they're in charge of the chessboard. Even Zahir, who had next to 0 funds, all he had was his bending, his team, and his brain. But the reason why it worked, the reason why I don't put him in the same box as Takuga and Shigaraki, is because what he had was all he needed. It didn't feel like he needed to grow or he was learning when we were first introduced to him. It already feels like he's got enough control. Characters like Takuga though, they bring to the table this sort of satisfaction. Being able to look back at where they were when they started and seeing them a while later as this actual problem, it's similar to when you look at a protagonist's growth, really. And even though you want this person to lose in the end and the heroes win, you feel the satisfaction over seeing how far they've come, which I think adds to the hype. So like I said, I'm excited to see where Takuga is going from here. Hopefully when he comes back, he does show signs of improvement, because where he is at the moment, I can't see him running Republic City. When he announced that that's what he wanted, he really started to lose me there because I could not see him running a coffee shop, let alone the whole city. When he comes back, hopefully he'll be stronger, maybe get stronger forces, and a well thought out plan. Maybe then I'll be able to see him as an actual leader of a city if he actually was able to succeed. With this storyline, we also got to hang out more with Bolin and Mako, who are both partners on the Force. Well, was, before Bolin decided the job wasn't for him. I'm starting to notice a pattern with this guy. I'm pretty sure every arc Bolin has a new job. Hey, I mean, he's a free spirit. I guess you can't tie him down. It does mean, though, he has one hell of a resume. Yeah, I did a few years of pro bending, did a year as a mover star, dabbled in a little fascism. Anyways, the time spent with these two were as fun as always. Bolin's probably my favorite character, and that doesn't change here. He's spontaneous, comedic, and good in a fight. Mako's the same as well. Actually, I'd say he looks better in this story than he did in Season 4. But then again, that's not much of a competition, even with one arm. The good cop, bad cop detective work between the two was also fun to watch, and actually useful for the plot. I'm glad even with the short amount of time this comic has compared to an actual season, and with everyone split up, they're still able to find use for these characters. Even though they are on the sidelines, they're not just straight up put on a shelf. The only problem I had was that moment when they were talking to that kid. It was when Bolin just suddenly exploded on the boy. At first I thought this was part of his plan, but apparently Bolin had actually just lost it, which I thought was a little too random and too out there for Bolin's character. Other than that, these two were really entertaining to be with comedic moments like Bolin's narrator moment, and a little bit of story moments with revisiting a little bit of these two's past. I can easily say our time wasn't wasted. Focusing on Mako again, how he handled the news that Korra and Asami were a couple. Now of course he was going to agree with the pairing. If the writers wanted these characters to remain likable, then they had better make them okay with it. Anyways, Mako disagreeing with the two of them being together would have done nothing but bring unneeded drama, and it would have just been annoying. No, it wasn't the fact that he was okay with Korrasami that stuck with me, it was the reaction. I like that the writers had him feel not weirded out, but rather just in shock. It would have been so easy to just have him nod and go, yeah, of course I'm okay with it, and just move on. No one would have really batted an eye. But that extra detail, having him process the information, and then give us that small moment with him and Korra, is stuff like that, subtle and not overly focused on, but still there. They were able to balance the fun of having Mako realize that both of his exes were together, while also respecting the situation, and even producing a really nice, dare I say, sweet moment with Mako and Korra. Speaking of Korra and Asami's relationship, this was the second storyline I wanted to talk about. If you're one of the 99.99% that thought that this relationship was not shown properly in Season 4, then I'm sure it was a welcome sight to see just how focused this comic was on these two. Even receiving the first couple pages that were just dedicated to solely their relationship and their getaway together in the spirit world, which I loved. I always liked spending more time in the spirit world, and this took its time properly, giving us the Korrasami moments that were unfortunately missed in the animated show. I know it was a shame that we didn't get this in the show, but I think these panels make up for it. We do get more than just fun panels with these two though. We do get plenty of that. We also get moments of them just talking about how they felt about each other during Korra's time away from when she was recovering from Zahira's poison, and even talking about how they made each other feel before that, when they weren't even thinking romantically about each other back in Season 1. Yes, I know, it's not show don't tell, but for a band-aid over an unfortunate situation, it's a pretty good band-aid. We were even given when they officially fell for each other, and it was a heartwarming talk. The comic did lose me when they went to go meet Korra's parents. For one thing, by then I felt like we were spending too much time with this couple. We were on page 18 and have yet to get to even talking about the main plot. We wouldn't be anywhere near the main plot until page 23. Luckily, each issue is around 75 pages, but still, that's still having us wait 23 pages before getting to Republic City, and that's way too much. Not only that, but just dedicating so much to a love side plot, I feel is too much. In an action comic or a show or a movie, I feel things like love stories should be saved for the side. Don't get me wrong, I've watched a lot of love dramas. I don't mind love stories, but if I want that to take up a lot of my time, I'll just go watch a love drama, you know? There are a few other things I didn't like about this storyline. I know it sounds like I don't like this couple, but trust me, I do. So one of the issues of the storyline is the fear that they won't be accepted for coming out as gay. For starters, I don't like the idea of fantasy worlds caring about sexuality. I feel like being in a fantasy world, something like that can just be avoided and characters can look at a same-sex couple or a couple where one person is gender fluid and just be like, okay, like they would be if seeing a hetero couple. It's not a storyline I feel is necessary in a fantasy world. Maybe it's because I see it enough in the real world and in stories set in the real world. Don't misunderstand, I definitely understand the struggle, but I feel like fantasy worlds, especially fantasy worlds for a show not focused on love, can have characters who can just fall in love with whoever. I also feel like it does take away from the action in the story that has to do with said action. And this is first and foremost an action story. So unless the story is about fighting a bunch of bigots that hate gay people, I don't feel there's enough room to fit this side plot in without making it feel like too much. I would have been happy with Korra and Asami together as a couple and everyone just being okay with it. Unless the writers want to make him or her instantly unlikable, which I don't know why they would. The only person that can have any reaction other than an immediate "I'm so happy for you" is Mako, because of the awkward fact that he dated both of them. And like I said before, they handled his reaction and him getting over it perfectly. Now, while I prefer a world where love is love, the world building lover in me can't help but like how they used past knowledge of each nation to write how each would react to same sex couples. Water Tribe wouldn't stone you, but for the sake of pride and honor and whatnot, they'd like you to keep that knowledge in the family. We're okay with it, but try not to hold hands during weddings type thing. Fire Nation, on the other hand, made that stuff straight up illegal, thanks to Sozin, who Korra immediately dubbed the worst. Yeah, no duh, Korra. I imagine Zuko or his daughter made it legal during their time as Fire Lord, but if life has taught us anything, these things take time even when legal. The Earth Kingdom's always been known as stubborn, so based on what is said here, they're not as lenient as the Airbenders, but they're probably not as bad as the Fire Nation. I'd say just a little worse than the Water Tribe. They'll be like, I don't like the idea of it, and I will judge you for it, but there's nothing really I can do. Finally, Air Nomads. They were chill. They were just all about let love be love, which is surprising when I picture these old guys. But now I'm certain Gyatso and this guy had a thing at one point in time. So yeah, I just can't help but like the detail and the effort put into making this world feel like a world with different cultures and different minds. Even if I don't like the idea of making a world that makes such a big deal about who dates who. This also did give Kia an opportunity to be more than just Aang's daughter. I mean, Bumi got his own thing, Tenzin had his own thing. She was the only one that just felt defined as a child of Aang. Having her be this confidant for Korra and Asami's relationship, having her teach them and comfort them, it's small, but it does help Kia's character seem more detailed and layered. A welcome addition to her character. Now, one last negative thing about this, the couple issues between Asami and Korra. Now, this is something that happens throughout this story. Their problems don't initiate a full-blown fight, thank God, but we do get some awkward panels where they're just... I know couples fight, and they of course won't agree on everything, but we literally just started with this couple. It wasn't even a day after their vacation before they suddenly had problems and awkward moments. This is the same problem we had with Korra and Mako in Season 1 and especially Season 2. The idea that there needs to be this awkward tension or a full-blown fight between couples in every arc. Like, can they not just be happy and supportive of each other without the weird and jarring panels of sudden problems? I just feel like doing this doesn't lead to anything, and it just feels forced for the sake of, I don't know, drama. Even though there's plenty of drama coming from the main storyline, you don't need to do the old main character's romance life is kinda shaky plot, especially if they just got together. I like it when these two are there comforting each other and bringing each other up. When that happens, the scenes are really heartwarming and I can see why they're together. I would just throw away the scenes where we get awkward tension moments. I feel like they don't lead anywhere and it really doesn't do the couple justice. That ending scene when Julie is quoting Aang in her president's speech, I know I'm jumping to the last storyline, but this is connected to Asami and Korra and I can't wait to talk about it anymore. But when she's quoting Aang, who was quoting the lion turtle,
"The true mind can weather all the lies and illusions without being lost. The true heart can tough the poison of hatred without being harmed. Since beginningless time, darkness thrives in the void, but always yields to purifying light."
we have Korra and Asami alone, and Korra tells Asami that she loves her. And it was chilling, to be honest. Just the atmosphere around them. They were nice to be around. I wanted to see these two happy, and I think that's what they should have been doing throughout this whole story. Show them working together, happy for a whole arc before starting to show some problems. There's really no reason to rush it. So getting into the final storyline, this one was honestly the one I was most into. Like I stated before, I love it when we get to see the aftermath of the battle. What happens after the Ensign? We get to see what happens in Republic City, and we see how they're handling the reconstruction. For one thing, this feels very relatable to our world. The citizens of Republic City seem very human. You can feel their discomfort, their fear that they're never going to be able to return to a normal life. They're desperate, living in these small, cramped camps with limited food, and you feel that. It's why I definitely understand why they turned on Korra because of Reiko's manipulation. Them being so easily convinced, you can tie that to their desperation. There's a good reason why they're ready to quickly jump to whoever feels the most in charge in that very moment. A good comparison would be the Joker movie.
With 10,000 tons of garbage piling up every day, even the nicest sections of the city are looking like slums. Health Commissioner Edward O'Rourke is declaring a citywide state of emergency for the first time in decades.
There's no need to wait until somebody dies or comes down with typhoid fever. It's already a serious situation.
It's something that affects almost everyone in the city, no matter who they are or where they live.
You can't go down no one avenue without seeing nothing but garbage and rats.
It's starting to affect my business when customers can't get in here because of the garbage situation.
I'm not out that long to smell it, but I think to look at it, it's terrible.
It don't affect me except for the very bad smell here. It's horrific.
It's a mess. I've been in this country for 50 years, and I've never seen anything like it. What is this world coming to?
Earlier on in that movie, they show us the harsh living conditions of Gotham, so you understand why these citizens are agitated, angry, and so quick to riot. And it works. As long as there's a good reason, I don't mind a crown that takes sudden drastic turns. And the way Korra handled the situation as the Avatar, I think, was how an Avatar should look over things. Having Korra stand up and speak to the people of Republic City was a great idea, and when she did, she wasn't bad. Sure, she wasn't like Zhu Li with a detailed plan, but her words were truthful. That's the ideal world she wants to help form. I'm glad they didn't have her get overwhelmed from the pressure and have her have this side plot of being afraid to speak to this desperate crowd. No, she got a little unsettled, but she buckled down and acted like an Avatar, and I love to see it. The story also upgraded Zhu Li, or should I say President Zhu Li. Now, this story came out after the United States presidential election, so I was worried that this would seem too on the nose. But actually, I ended up enjoying that too. I think because it was Zhu Li, someone we know and is 100% capable for the job, versus Reiko, who, let's be honest, is pretty useless. Some other quick things about this storyline. Supportive Varric is amazing. They were able to keep his funny, zany attitude throughout this whole story, and having him be in charge of Zhu Li's campaign was utter genius. I mean, the man's willing to stay in a toxic battle zone to make his wife look good. This storyline is also connected to the Airbenders' mission to make the spirit portal in the middle of Republic City's sacred ground, rather than owned by this big businessman character, Won-Ting Kyum. Once again, I'm a big fan of how the writers were able to give everyone something to do, and what they were given was entertaining and fit with their characters rather than a waste of time. Also, seeing them work together to get rid of the gas was a great moment as well. This really highlighted the Air Nomads as a team, rather than just focusing on specific characters. It was showing us the responsibilities of the Air Nomads as a group during time of recovery. The fight scenes. They're great to see. The illustrator was able to capture the Legend of Korra style well, and while reading these fights, I never felt they were out of place or janky to look at. The final battle looked like a final battle worth seeing. Seeing the airship leave the real world and enter the spirit one, man, I wish I could see that animated. And the tension between the fight itself with Korra versus Takuga and the Air Nomads getting rid of the poison gas, it was all planned out very well. Now, while the fight scenes didn't feel janky, a few panels outside the fights felt a little weird. They would just feel a little rushed. It didn't happen so much that I was just rolling my eyes. It was only like once or twice an issue, but that also made it weird because I'd just be reading through the pages and then stumble on a weirdly paced scene which would just stick out for me for a while. Luckily, like I said, these issues have 75 pages, I had time to get over it. The overall art for this comic was great to look at. I like the faint sketch looking style they were going with, and the vibrant colors throughout the comic were nice too. My favorite location had to be the spirit world. The combination of colors and the creatures that they drew got that otherworldly feel of the place down, even when it looked like death, because then there was this cold, ominous feeling to it. Hearing that Kyoshi was by, there was so many avatars back then that we know next to nothing about. So getting these little snippets, hearing about one of her regrets in life being that she couldn't make the Earth Kingdom more accepting, it adds more detail to these characters. So how do I feel overall about these 3 issues? I really enjoyed it. Like I said, no person felt wasted. Everyone had an interesting goal and interesting ways to get there. I know I complained about some parts of Korrasami, but they were still sweet to see together and even apart. Korra had interesting scenes as the Avatar, while Asami had interesting scenes trying to rebuild Republic City, and even when she's captured and forced to work on Takuga's death gas. The comic was solid. I love the look of it, the feel of it. It's a story I definitely recommend. Tell me what you guys thought about this arc. Was it good? Was it bad? Would you rather read 15 issues about Snowflake and Safe Space? Tell me down in the comments below. I know there's a second arc focused on Kuvira, and I'll be sure to talk about it in the future. Until then, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, and if you enjoyed and want to see more of my videos, subscribe.